Hey guys, somebody sent me a video recently that they'd found on YouTube of I don't know what you'd call it. It was sort of like a scissor lift, scissor lift thing that had been put in a car park in America, in a Walmart in America, and it was put there by the police, and it was a surveillance thing. It was like a little room that they could put up a few meters up in the air in the middle of this car park, and a policeman would sit in there, and it had cameras in it, and he could sit there and monitor the car park. And it was a big the guy that made the video was all concerned that they were turning his town into a police state and taking away all his rights by putting this thing up in a car park. So somebody sent this to me and asked me what I thought about it. So I'll just give you my opinion. I respect if the guy that made that video thinks that, you know, it's all part of a conspiracy to take away his rights and that it's turning his country into a police state or whatever. That's fine. I respect that he has his opinion and that lots of other people agreed with him in the comments. But interestingly, I noticed that anybody that disagreed in the comments got attacked with the usual. I've noticed the same thing happens with anybody who says that they don't believe in a conspiracy or don't believe in anything like this. If anyone had a different opinion, so for example, a couple of people left comments that you know, that they thought that all it did was provide security in the car park, and they didn't think it eroded their rights, and they didn't think that it was a problem, and they thought it was okay, and they got attacked quite severely and called ignorant and sheep and all the usual things that people usually say if they say they don't believe in a conspiracy or don't believe in one of these sort of things. So so first I'll address the question. The question was, what do I think of the cameras in the car parks? Well, this debate about cameras in public places has been going on since they first started putting cameras in public places. 1987 I got involved in the crime prevention and law enforcement industry, and from soon after that we started putting cameras in around the place. So from 20 years of doing that, I can tell you that the only motivations I came across for doing it was people who wanted to stop crime. So if it was a shopping centre car park, it was usually because they were having cars broken into and cars stolen, and occasionally people robbed in car parks, or occasionally might have been some antisocial behaviour with people in the car park, you know, doing drugs or you know, crime. Basically it was crime prevention, and that was the motivation. I never came across any clandestine guys in dark glasses who wanted to put cameras in public places to spy on people. It didn't happen. It was always a crime problem. I never put cameras anywhere there wasn't crime. You know, it was always public places where there'd been crime and where they wanted to stop crime. And you know, unlike the Bruce Willis movies where all the cameras are somehow magically linked together and overseen by some spy network, you know, some CIA spy thing, the systems were never like that. They were never connected to anything. Usually they had sometimes they were connected to multiplex systems that recorded them, but usually the tapes in those, at first they were tapes, 24-hour tapes, and every 24 hours they'd tape over themselves, so there was no record of anything. The only time, and those systems are all digital now, and they can have longer memories now, so they can keep data for a year if they want to, if they've got big enough memory in them. But usually the only time, this is the reality, this is the experience that I had in 20 years, so I'm sure some people will think that, nah, you know, this guy's ignorant, he doesn't know about the secret. Okay, that's all fine. I'm just telling you what I saw. And what I saw was the only time people ever looked at those recordings was if there was a crime. So the main purpose of the cameras was crime prevention, but occasionally if there was actually a crime, then we'd look back at the recordings and try and get descriptions of the criminals. So in my experience, the only people that had any disadvantage from those systems were criminals. Occasionally a criminal would get caught, and I've got to be honest with you guys, not often. more often than not, you'd end up with a really nice image of someone committing a crime, and they'd never get caught, you know. But the prevention measure was there. It was definitely true that in areas where we put cameras in, there was definitely a drop in crime. Because, you know, we all know, don't we? You look up, you see a camera up on the post, you know. The average person, unless they're really off their face on drugs or really stupid, usually if they see a camera up on a post somewhere, they're not going to go and then commit a crime in view of that camera. Not usually. They do. They do. Not all criminals are geniuses, surprisingly enough. But yeah, they do. So as far as Joe Public, I mean, I'm sitting. I specifically came to my local. We don't have a Walmart here, but it's the sort of the nearest we've got. And I'm sitting in the car park. There's a guy putting a trolley away about 20 feet from me. I'm in a public place, basically. And my thinking is, again, just my opinion. Other people have their opinions. That's fantastic. I'm in a public place, and as far as I'm concerned, from when the places where I'm in a private place are in my apartment, or if I go and stay in a hotel, or, you know, you usually know if you're in a private place, you expect privacy. And if someone wanted to start putting cameras in people's private homes or in hotel rooms or anything, any place, or changing rooms, toilets, anywhere like that where we expect privacy, if anybody started to put cameras in a place like that, I would join the people who protest against these things, because that obviously is not good enough. You know, we can't be putting cameras in private places, or we can't put cameras in places where people think they have privacy. I don't think that's a good thing. And I don't think hidden cameras are a good thing either. If people don't know they're there, I have a bit of a problem with that. I'm not real comfortable with that. Again, unless there's some exceptions for that. I think if it is a public place, and if it's done specifically to catch some criminals, again, it's a public place. And, you know, for all I know, I can't see any cameras here. But for all I know, there could be. I mean, I've used cameras that you could read a watch at 500 meters. So it's quite possible there is a camera here somewhere, and there's some security guard in a back room somewhere zooming in on this suspect-looking guy sitting in the car who could be looking at me right now. And as far as I'm concerned, why would I care? I mean, there's also quite possibly someone sitting in one of these other cars looking at me anyway. I'm in a public place. And I think that's the difference, you know. In our private places, or in places that we think are private, we should expect privacy, of course. But I'm in a public place. You know, from when I step outside my door until I'm going to go home again, I'm going to be in public places all day today, and I don't expect privacy. That's crazy. Don't look at me, you people. Stop looking at me. You know, it's not. For me, again, just my opinion. It's not realistic. It's not realistic to expect to be out in a society and expect privacy. I don't see how that's possible. It's like a contradiction of terms. It's an oxymoron, privacy in a public place. I don't get it. And I don't see the difference between the 20 or 30 people that are quite possibly looking at me right now and the one guy that's looking at me through a camera. And even if he is recording it, so what? You know, I don't think most of the people that I came across in that 20 years of being in that environment was, most innocent people felt safer if there was cameras, and you know, the only people that were bothered by the people doing something wrong. So if I'm sitting here smoking a joint, or if I'm wanting to break into someone's car or something else, then of course I'm going to be uncomfortable with the idea. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm in a public place. The other thing about taking away my rights to do what? You know, what is it? You know, I'd never understand that argument, that putting cameras in a public place is taking away our rights. Well, rights to do what? You know, what is it that I want to do that I can't do if there's a camera? You know, if there's no camera, there's still 20, 30 people looking at me. What is it that I want to do? Again, if you're innocent, you're not doing anything wrong, I don't see the problem. So, to be honest, what I have more of a problem with is the abuse that people that express opinions like this get from the people who have different opinions, and that I find that incredibly hypocritical. that the same people that go on about their rights and their freedoms and, you know, privacy and all that sort of stuff, you know, and they're all so very concerned about people's rights, the same people that go on with all that are the ones that abuse people that have a different opinion to them. You know, what about the rights of a person who wants to express an opinion without being abused for it? You know, and I've found this consistently, you know, on YouTube, on my videos and on other people's videos. If you address a topic and you have an opinion that's different from other people's opinions, you are subject to abuse by all sorts of people. I'm sorry to say that, you know, more often than not it's from American people, which is, I find very disappointing, because, you know, those guys, you know, supposedly lead the world in democracy and human rights and everything else, and that's all fantastic and I respect that, but, you know, more often than not, if I cop a whole heap of abuse because I've given an opinion, and I check on that person's channel, I find that they're American. I don't understand that. Does anyone else see that as a contradiction? You know, you should be able to say in the comment section of this video, you should be able to say, I totally disagree with you. I think that cameras are a terrible thing and we don't need them, and they don't stop crime and they don't do anything positive, and I think we shouldn't have them. You should be able to say that and not cop any abuse from anyone. You know, I don't see why these guys that have to get so emotional. I mean, I know that it's an emotional issue. I know that these people feel very strongly about the human rights thing, and about the you know, their privacy, and about, and, you know, extending this out to the conspiracies, and, you know, people feel that we're being fooled by, you know, by all sorts of conspiratists and so on. And I understand these people feel very strongly, and we need people in the world who feel strongly about these issues, because it's checks and balances. We need people who get extreme about this sort of stuff because it balances stuff out. But there's no need for rudeness. You know, I think, you know, I find, rather than a camera on a post, I don't find offensive at all. But just because I express an opinion, personal attacks, you know, and I actually made a video about this before, you know, we should be able to express different opinions without the personal attacks. And I know in some countries that's become normal now. You know, if someone has a different opinion from someone else, they abuse them. They hit them with a whole heap of abuse and name calling and personal attacks. You know, you're stupid, you're a dum-dum head, all that sort of childish stuff. You know, that you're stupid, you know, you're a sheep, you're having the wool pulled over your eyes. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, you're ignorant. People like you are ignorant. All the rest of that stuff, just because a person has a different opinion to them. You know. And I mean, my opinion on this camera surveillance thing is based on 20 years of experience. So, I'm not ignorant. You know, I'm actually pretty well informed. I think that, you know, there's not a lot of people who will be watching this video who've got 20 years of experience actually, you know, planning surveillance systems and installing surveillance systems and using surveillance systems and being on the other side of it. I'm sure there's a lot of people here that, you know, that have seen cameras and so on, but how many people have 20 years experience? So I'm not ignorant. I'm not saying I'm right. My opinion is just my opinion. It's nothing more. You know, other people might have totally different opinions and think I'm wrong. That's fine. What I'm saying is, no need for the abuse. It should be possible to say, I disagree with what you're saying, I think, and then say what you think. There shouldn't be any need for the abuse. I think it shows weakness. I think it shows a lot of rudeness, but I think it shows weakness. If we are confident in what we believe, we don't have to get all emotional and screaming at people if they have a different opinion. You know, lots of people in the world, we've all got different opinions. There's not one topic, there's not one thing that everybody agrees on. There'll always be someone that will argue something's different. Always someone. You know, I can make a video saying, you know, black is black, and there'll always be someone who'll have a different opinion on it. You know, I know black's all colours mixed together, and it's not black. It's an absence of colour. I don't know. You know, there's always someone that'll have a different opinion. We just have to accept that. You know, there's no need to get all emotional about it and abusive about it. And I think irrelevant of opinions on topics, I think as soon as someone starts calling names and be abusive, the topic and what they're actually saying is irrelevant. because irrelevant of how well educated you are or how well informed your opinion is, if you're abusing and name calling people, you're not worth listening to be honest. And that's actually my policy, you know, on YouTube and off YouTube, is if people start getting abusive and rude and name calling and carrying on, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what they think. You know, that person could have had a very intelligent opinion that was very worth listening to and could have taught me something. But as far as I'm concerned, if they're calling me ignorant and stupid and dumb brain and all that sort of stuff, I won't listen to them. Because as far as I'm concerned, that person's not civilized and that person's not worth listening to, because they're not civilized and they have no honor and they have no integrity, and particularly on the internet. If someone wants to stand toe to toe and call me names, then, you know, that takes a bit of balls. But anonymously on the internet, name calling, no. Who can have respect for that? You know, no. So anyway, I know I've wandered off, but that's why this channel's called what it is. It's not called the intellectual guy who follows a train of thought logically and succinctly, is it? Called the Silly Old Dude channel, right? You've been warned. What's the byline where I come to talk nonsense and amuse myself? I've sat here and talked nonsense and amused myself. There we are. No false advertising. I did exactly what I said I'd do. Okay, well, I've enjoyed sitting here in this public place being observed with no privacy at all. It's fabulous. So, yeah, well, I hope someone is still listening and that someone got some value out of that. Anyway, more videos coming soon.